Hello, friends. Welcome back to English Classes Online. My name is Benjamin. Today's video is on the themes of Caged Bird by Maya Angelou, West African Senior School Certificate Examination, English Preparatory Lesson. If you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. You will find the bell icon as well. Click on that bell icon so that whenever a new video is uploaded on this channel, you will be notified instantly. This video will be helpful to all candidates of the West African Senior School Certificate Examination, National Examinations Council Senior School Certificate Examination, NAPTEP, and other equivalent or senior school certificate examinations. If you are a candidate of any of these exams or other equivalent English exams in which Maya Angelou's Caged Bird is part of the recommended text, of course, this video is for you, and you can get your pen and paper and pay attention to this lesson. It will be important for you to watch the video till the end so that you get adequately informed and equipped with the themes of Caged Birds by Maya Angelou. Come with me as we dive into the lesson right away so that we will be able to examine the themes of this important literary work. You need to understand the various themes in this work. First, let's have a quick look at the 3-point agenda: why, what, and how. Number one, why is theme an important element in literary analysis and appreciation? Two, what are the themes in Caged Bird by Maya Angelou? And three, how to analyze the themes in the poem. At this point, we are going to discuss the themes one by one in the light of the poet's choice of words. So we are going to look at this 3-point agenda: why, what, and how. But first, you need to understand that questions on Caged Bird by Maya Angelou are likely to occur under the non-African poems in the WAEC Literature in English exam or any of the other equivalent exams. The first question is, why is theme an important element in literary analysis and appreciation? You need to understand that theme is the main idea expressed in a work of art. If you have read a poem or a novel and someone asks you what the book is about, you are likely to discuss the themes with them. So theme is basically what the entire work is all about. And knowing the theme of a poem will help you to analyze and appreciate it, because the theme shows you the poet's thoughts and ideas about life in general and about the situation being specifically addressed in the poem. Now, the poem Caged Bird by Maya Angelou addresses the racist situation in the American society of the periods under review. All right? And taking a look at the period of slavery and the aftermath, during which the average African American was, you know, racially discriminated against and deprived of the rights enjoyed by their white counterparts. So the themes of this poem, will give us insight into Maya's thoughts and ideas about, the situation facing the African American of that particular period. So we are going to look at this one by one as we analyze this important poem. Now, if you understand the various themes that we are going to discuss, they will help you in answering questions in any of these exams. First, let's look at how the title gives a clue to the poet's thematic preoccupation. All right, the title of the poem, gives us a clue to what occupied the mind of Maya Angelou as she wrote the poem Caged Bird. The title of the poem Caged Bird gives us a picture of confinement or restriction of movement. The word caged means being confined in a cage. A bird is known for its ability to fly by virtue of its wings, but a caged bird is deprived of the freedom to fly. And so Maya Angelou is preoccupied by the situation of the average Black American of that era, and the kind of psychological and physical deprivation or restriction that they suffer during that period as a result of the racist policies that deprived the Black Americans of their citizenship rights. These rights were enjoyed by their white counterparts, but they were deprived of these rights. And sometimes an African American who wanted to protest the injustices was, physically arrested and detained. And that gives you a picture of what the caged bird is all about. So the title gives us a clue to the poet's thematic preoccupation. If you can have a picture of what happens to a bird that is in a cage, the bird cannot fly out of the cage. That, of course, shows you the kind of situation faced by the African Americans during the period that Maya Angelou is reviewing in this work of art. So I want you to just form a mental picture of what a caged bird passes through. The restriction of movement, the confinement, all right? And the rights, the freedom that the bird is prevented from enjoying. And that will give you a clue to the situation of the Black Americans that Maya Angelou discusses in this work of art. So number two, what are the themes of Caged Bird? Number one, racial discrimination. Two, the pains of enslavement and limitation. Three, human desire for freedom is natural. Human desire for freedom as a natural or universal phenomenon. Number four, freedom and confinement as ironies of life. Of course, you see that these are two antithetical situations. A class of human beings enjoy freedom Another class of human beings do not enjoy any freedom. They are deprived of all forms of freedom. They are confined, they are deprived, they are limited, they are oppressed, they are marginalized. These are ironies. Of course, that's one of the themes. Number 5, the evils of human rights violations, a situation where the basic rights of a citizen are violated. Then theme number 6, music as a great tool for expression and agitation. And number 7, shattered dreams. Every human being has the right to dream and to achieve their dreams. But when your dreams are shattered, it is basically because the tools you need for pursuing those dreams and achieving them have been taken away from you, or you are deprived of the ability to utilize those tools. And so your dreams are shattered, you're unable to achieve them. So we are going to look at these themes one by one. There are more of these themes, but we are looking specifically at 7 of them. And that is what this video is all about. Themes are very important elements of literary creation and literary appreciation. Now, the point number 3 in our agenda, how to analyze the themes in the poem. So at this juncture, we are going to discuss the themes one by one in the light of the poet's choice of words. Let's start with theme number 1, racial discrimination. You need to understand what racial discrimination is about. The free bird is used as a metaphor to represent the white American communities who had freedom to live and enjoy all the privileges available to citizens of that country. Unlike the blacks in that society who were enslaved and oppressed, the poem obviously portrays the obnoxious era of slavery and its aftermath, characterized by lingering racial discrimination against the blacks in the American society. So racial discrimination is the segregation, classifying citizens according to their color and making it impossible for people of one color to enjoy the rights enjoyed by the people of the other color. It is called color bar. It is called racism, and it reigns supreme in the American society of the 1950s, or the period during the era of the slave trade, all right? And even after the abolition of the slave trade, racism thrived, and the African Americans were deprived of their rights. Now, we can see exactly theme number 2 is about the pains of enslavement and limitation. And then if we look at stanza 2, of course, it gives us insight into what this is all about. All right. If you look for my video, the first video I uploaded concerning this particular poem, you will find detailed analysis stanza by stanza. But in this video, we are looking at the theme specifically. But then you can't discuss the theme without referring to the very stanzas that contain the content of the poem, because analysis is good when it is actually making direct reference to the content of the literary work. So let's look at stanza 2. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. This gives us an image of a caged bird, contrary to the image of the free bird in stanza 1. Here we look at a bird that is trapped in his narrow cage, can seldom see through his bars of rage, his wings are clipped and his feet are tied. So these are all describing the agonies of an oppressed person, somebody who is enslaved, somebody who is confined, somebody who is limited, all right? Who's you see the narrow cage, the cage is narrow, and again, there is no escape from it. You are restricted to that narrow cage, and so you can't express yourself. This is a situation where you can hardly see through your bars of rage in the sense that within the bars of that cage, you are only reminded of your inability to enjoy freedom. And so you are in an angry state, all right? And you can only be angry, but you can do nothing about it because you are caged. All right, your movement is restricted. Your ability to do something about your situation is even taken away from you. So, having been denied the freedom to fly, the only thing this bird can do is to open his throat to sing, as you can see in the last line. All right, obviously to voice his frustrations. So in looking at the poet's choice of words, like stalks down his narrow cage, seldom see his bars of rage, wings clipped, feet tied, you can see the pains, these are pains of enslavement, pains of limitation. And this reminds us of the Black American who was, taken, from Africa to America to live as a slave, deprived of the human rights and deprived of citizenship rights, deprived of freedom, and subjected to pain, subjected to agony. All right, that is the experience that Maya Angelou is painting in the stanzas of this poem. So one of the major themes is the pains of enslavement and limitation. The Black American was enslaved and he was limited in his enjoyment of human rights. He was limited, restricted, all right? So the tone of this stanza actually gives us a picture of what the poet is talking about. Because in stanza 1, we saw a bird that had all the freedom to fly. But here we find a bird that is caged, the wings are clipped and the feet are tied, and can only remain in a narrow cage and can seldom see through his bars of rage. So that is the situation of the caged bird. And the caged bird is a metaphor for the average Black American subjected to slavery or enslavement. And even after the abolition of the slave trade, this same Black American was subjected to racial discrimination in the American society of that period. So that is exactly what we find here. Lines 1 to 6 give us a sad picture of total restriction of movement and degradation. And in that situation, you discover that the victim is subjected to bitterness, frustration, and helplessness. Those are the pains of enslavement and limitation. And that is what the poem is all about. It draws our attention to a high degree of helplessness and frustration that leaves the victim with no other option except to sing as a way of voicing his feelings. So I want you to understand what the poem is about. you need to be emotionally involved. Because when you understand the pains of the Black American of the slave era in America and the Black American of the racist era in the American society, then you understand what this poem is about. You understand the picture of the caged bird, all right? Now, having, uh, having said that, we are going to look at other aspects of this poem to actually look at the themes, the ideas expressed in this work of art. Now that brings us to theme number 3, which is human desire for freedom is natural. All right, so you can understand every human being has this natural desire to be free, and that is a dominant theme in this poem. And we want to look at stanza 3 of the poem, which gives us a picture of what this theme is about. In stanza 3, we find that the caged bird desires the freedom it has never known. All right? How do we know that? By reading stanza 3. Let's look at it together. The caged bird sings with a fearful thrill of things unknown, but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. Wow, that is the situation of the caged bird. The caged bird sings, all right? So we are given a picture of the caged bird expressing his feelings by singing fearfully of things unknown but longed for still. You see, the caged bird has not known freedom, but it longs for it desperately. You see, so a human, think of a human being, for instance, who is confined either as a result of detention for political reasons or for racial reasons or for reason of being enslaved during the era of the slave trade. So you can see that there is no option for a person in this situation than to actually desire what he or she has not even known. You are deprived of freedom, and you know that you need freedom, you desire it, but you don't have it. So that's the situation of the bird. The caged bird sings with a fearful thrill of things unknown, but longed for still. You see, the caged bird does not know freedom because is deprived of that freedom. Yet there is this longing in his heart. There is this yearning for freedom. And so one of the dominant themes of this poem is that, you know, freedom is a natural phenomenon. It's a universal human phenomenon. It's a unique human phenomenon. Every human being is longing for freedom. To become free is really the longing of every man. And when you are deprived of freedom, at that moment, you don't know freedom because you don't have it. But inside you, you are yearning for that freedom. That's why every class of people who are deprived of their freedom are agitating for that freedom because they desire it, they desperately long for it. And no matter how long it takes, they will fight for it, all right? So you see that the caged bird sings of freedom, is longing for it. And that portrays freedom as a natural human instinct, something every human being longs for. Even those in the prisons, those who are subjected to various dehumanizing situations or conditions or circumstances, right in their hearts, they desire this freedom. And so this poem explores the importance of freedom as a unique human phenomenon, what every living soul is really longing for. And of course, the right to freedom cannot be stopped. No matter how long it takes, you know, every human being will agitate for freedom if they are deprived of it. So that is what the poem is about. And now we come to theme number 4, which is freedom and confinement as ironies of life. You know, we have talked about freedom, we have talked about confinement, but we are looking at freedom and confinement juxtaposed or placed side by side in the human society. You know, and that underscores, you know, irony. There are ironies of life, because here you see the free bird is a symbol of the privileged white citizens in America. We are going to look at stanza 1, then we look at stanza 2, because what we want to look at here is that these two things are juxtaposed. So what we are looking at here is the fact that these two things are placed side by side, freedom and confinement. In stanza 1, we look at the freedom enjoyed by the free bird. And let's look at it together. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. Wow, look at the freedom he enjoys. Look at the abundance he enjoys and has free access to. All right? Now, on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends. These all point to the freedom the bird enjoys, and dips his wing in the orange rain, in the orange sun rays, and dares to claim the sky. Look at the audacity, look at the freedom, look at the authority, look at the power, look at the abundance available to the free bird. By the way, this stanza gives us a picture of a free bird that lives on the back of the wind and flows downstream, and so on and so forth. The tone here is that of an individual or a group of people that can play, that are happy, that are enjoying life to its full. All right. And then you look at lines 1 to 4 here. You discover that these lines describe the bird's total freedom of movement. Then in lines 5 to 7, you see a picture painted, a picture of full assurance of ownership, rights, and privileges, all right, through the use of personification. You know, dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. Here, the bird is portrayed as being able to dip his wings in the orange sun rays and also being able to claim the sky, which obviously are human characteristics. Now, this gives us a picture of the white American, you know, who enjoyed all the citizenship rights and had free access to all the good things available to American citizens. And that is the situation of the free bird here. This free bird can fly in the sky with all the freedom it desires and deserves. But then we have an opposite picture. When we get to stanza 2, we see a clear departure from and a total opposite to the freedom, the joy, the abundance that we find here that are available. So we are looking at this as part of the ironies of life. is not only about what happened in the American society being addressed in this poem, but it's a universal phenomenon. A theme is a universal idea, something that is true about life. And so we find this same irony, the fact that you have freedom and confinement, as antithetical situations, facing citizens of the same country, people living in the same country, then you have a group of people that enjoy all these rights and all this freedom. But you have a different group that don't have access to this, and that is an irony. And so in stanza 2, we find a total departure from and a complete opposite to the freedom enjoyed by the free bird. Here in stanza 2, we see that the caged bird is a complete opposite of the free bird. One enjoys freedom, that's the free bird. The other languishes in confinement and deprivation. And so we look at stanza 2 again, and it reads, "But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing." So stanza 2 here gives us the image of a caged bird, and this is contrary to the freedom enjoyed by the free bird. Now, here we discover that the bird cannot fly. The bird in the other stanza has all the freedom to fly and even has the audacity to claim the sky as his own. But here, this bird is restricted to the narrow cage and can seldom see through his bars of rage. Again, there are additional restrictions. Even within that confinement, the wings are clipped, the feet are tied, and the bird is in a state of helplessness. This refers to the situation of the Black Americans during the period under review. And so the theme we are analyzing here is the theme of the irony of this situation, that you have confinement and you have freedom, juxtaposed in the same environment. And here we have theme number 5, the evils of human rights violations. There are rights available to the citizens of every country, and these are enshrined in the constitution of that country. In every country, it is stipulated clearly in the constitution that the citizens of that country have certain rights that are their basic human rights. For example, they have rights of freedom to movement, freedom of association, freedom to express their feelings, their right to ownership. They have the right to own property. They have the right to choose the kind of job they want to do, and so on and so forth. The right to pursue and achieve their dreams. But talking about the caged bird and what it represents, we see that the caged bird represents a Black American citizen whose rights were violated by the racist society. And we have seen it over and over and over again, especially in stanza 2, where the traumatic situation of the caged bird is graphically portrayed. All right? And so we look at it again, we see that this stanza 2 gives us an image of a caged bird that, is deprived of all rights. The right of movement is deprived. and we can see that the bird is confined to his narrow cage. That is, the freedom of movement, is the right to move about, is taken away, is violated by the racist society. All right? And then the wings are clipped. This refers to the deprivation, the limitation that the average Black American suffers in that society. All right. So, and a lot of other deprivations. So when you look at stanza 2, we have read it over and over, and is giving us the same picture of the average Black American during the slavery era and its aftermath, characterized by racism, racial discrimination. All right. The whites had their freedom, given to them, freedom of movement, freedom of expression, freedom of association, their right to own property, and so on and so forth. But these rights were violated when it comes to the Black Americans. Now, of course, this situation gave rise to many African American human rights activists, such as Martin Luther King, and of course, you have to understand that Maya Angelou, the poet of this poem, herself was a human rights activist. And of course, this poem is part of, her agitation for the freedom of the Black Americans, because through this work of art, she is protesting against the situation facing the Black Americans of that period. All right. And, everywhere that there has been this kind of marginalization or violation of the citizens' human rights, you see that, we have had what is called protest literature. You can find it in the apartheid South Africa. During the apartheid regime, you find a number of Black, a number of Africans who wrote at that point protesting against the racist policies of the apartheid regime. The same thing is what Maya Angelou is doing in this poem, protesting against the injustices of the racist regime during that period in American history. All right. So the rights of the Black Americans were violated, and some of them who were agitating for freedom were arrested and detained and subjected to all kinds of dehumanization. Or what can you even talk about the Black American who was taken as a slave in the American society during the era of slavery? The rights were not even there in the first place. They were not only violated, they were completely taken away from the slave, who could be subjected to chains. The hands were chained, the legs were chained, and the only time he enjoyed freedom was the time he was taken to the plantation to work under the sun and under very strenuous conditions. And so the Black American slaves were subjected to this kind of situation where their rights were all violated. And because they were under extreme oppressive conditions, and their inability to regain their freedom, they were in a predicament. And the only option they had was to open their throat to sing, as we find in the last stanza, in the last line of this stanza 2 in the poem. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped, and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. That is the only option. So we find that the caged bird in stanza 2 is a metaphor for the downtrodden Black American communities during the era of slavery and its aftermath, characterized by racial discrimination and oppression. Like the caged bird, the blacks in that racist society were deprived of all citizenship rights and privileges that their white counterparts enjoyed. So one of the dominant themes of this poem is the violation of human rights or human rights violation. That is a dominant theme explored, portrayed by Maya Angelou in Caged Bird. And like I said earlier, you can better analyze this poem by having a mental picture of what a caged bird experiences, all right? So that exactly, if the rights of the bird to fly were taken away, the right of movement, the right to go and look for food and enjoy the breeze, then you can understand what human rights violations are all about. And that brings us to theme number 6, music as a great tool for expression and agitation. All right, the caged bird sings, and that is music. Music has been described as a universal language. Every human soul enjoys music. And when a human being is traumatized, when a human being is oppressed, when a human being is dehumanized, then of course the only option is to resort to music, singing precisely. And you can understand that this also is a direct allusion to the songs sung by the slaves, the slaves in America, who were predominantly African Americans, who were sold into slavery, taken into slavery in America, and they suffered a lot of, dehumanizing conditions. So they sang, as a way of expressing themselves. And so when we look at stanza 3 again, the caged bird desires the freedom it has never known. But what we see here is that the caged bird expresses himself through singing, and that actually underscores this theme of music as a unique, tool for expression and agitation. Now let's look at this stanza, and it is all about music. The caged bird sings with a fearful thrill of things unknown, but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom, sings of freedom. So that is music. You can also understand what this theme of music as a tool for expression and agitation, is all about. When you remember that the African Americans, some of them have resorted to the use of music as a tool for expressing their feelings about the deplorable condition of their race in America. And you can remember quite a number of them who used music to express their feelings, and most importantly, to agitate for freedom, like the caged bird here. Now, you see that if you look at this stanza, the caged bird sings with a fearful thrill of things unknown, but long for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. So that is the use of music as a tool for self-expression and as a tool for agitation. Now, not only in the American society of the racist and slavery eras, but also in various parts of the world, we have always found that people who have been marginalized have always used music to make their voice known to both those who marginalize them and those who may be in a higher authority or position to be of help. You know, the oppressed soul of the average man is yearning for freedom. And even in prayer, the soul of the oppressed man is singing and agitating for deliverance, for healing, for salvation. All right. So music has always been a very, very effective tool for self-expression and for agitation. And even in the spiritual things, all right, whether you talk about people in the Old Testament or people in the New Testament, music has always been a tool not only for worship, but most importantly for prayer, praying and yearning and asking for deliverance. Of course, if you look at the Psalms, the book of Psalms in the Bible, you discover that most of the Psalms are, expression of the psalmist's feeling, and most importantly, calling for for divine intervention in certain oppressed situations. All right. And that is exactly, for instance, the psalm that talked about, by the rivers of Babylon, where, we sat down, is talking about the use of music to express the agony of the soul, to express, the feelings, by an agitated soul. And that is exactly what the cage bird does here. The cage bird sings of freedom, and that underscores the importance of music and the purpose of music, and the fact that music has actually played a major role even in the struggle for human wisdom, human freedom. All right. So music as a great tool for expression and agitation is a dominant theme in this poem. And I want to believe that the picture has been made quite clear to you why this is a great theme in this particular poem. But you look at stanza 6, you still see stanza 6 is a refrain, all right? And I want you to understand that when a stanza of a poem is repeated, it shows the emphasis that the poet gives to the theme or the subject, the idea being expressed there. And so if we look at this stanza, it's a repetition of the previous stanza. And that is what is called refrain in literary terms. In literary analysis, a refrain is, a repeated line or a repeated stanza or a repeated, aspect or part of a work of art, especially a poem. And so the repetition of this stanza, which is talking about the cage bird singing, the cage bird sings with a fearful thrill of things unknown, but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, but the cage bird sings of freedom. All right, you of course you can remember in a number of songs released by, human rights activists. Let me call them human rights activists or people who have agitated for human rights, but they did so with the instrumentality of music. And many of these, uh, celebrated musicians sang songs that were songs of freedom. All right, songs of freedom. You often hear these songs of freedom reverberating, all right, being played, being listened to all over the world. And people listen to these songs and they are emotionally involved, all right? They empathize and sympathize with the downtrodden. They begin to see the situation, the kind of deplorable condition, that the people pass through, and that actually shows how music has played a big role in in the human agitation for freedom. From South Africa to America and all over the world, we have had songs of freedom. Even during the apartheid era in South Africa, we had many African musicians sang songs of freedom, all right, agitating that there should be freedom for the Africans, the Black Africans in their own soil, all right? A similar thing happened. The Black Africans in the American soil, all right, they were subjected to this excruciating situation. And of course, songs were sung by people agitating for their freedom. And that shows us that music is indeed a tool for expression and for agitation. And it is really clearly portrayed in this poem for exactly what it is. So it's a dominant theme in this poem. And, we see a picture of the caged bird expressing his feelings by singing fearfully of things unknown but longed for still. And that is agitation, agitating for freedom, all right? Expressing his feelings. So music as a tool for self-expression and for agitation. That is exactly a dominant theme in this poem. And I cannot really emphasize it enough. It is self-evident in the verses, in the lines, in the entire poem. You find this theme quite a dominant one. And so let's look at the last theme in our analysis today. And that is theme number 7, shattered dreams. Again, you see that, the tendency to dream and to desire to achieve dreams is a human, a universal phenomenon. Every human being has the right and the natural tendency to dream and to want to achieve their dreams. But when you lack the ability to translate your desire into achievements, then your desire, like dreams, become shattered, all right? So, and that is the situation that is being depicted by Maya Angelou in Caged Birds. The caged bird desires freedom, freedom to fly freely in the sky, enjoy the wind, the breeze, fly into distant land and enjoy the goodies in such environment. But of course, this dream cannot be achieved by the caged bird by virtue of its being caged. So again, let's look at stanza 5 that actually gives us a clear picture of this theme we are talking about, shattered dreams. And so let's read this. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. The dreams are already dead. You only have the grave, buried in the grave. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. his wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird stands, that is personification. A caged bird is described as standing, which is a human quality. But this personification is used, alongside the metaphor. The grave of dreams is a metaphor, all right? And these literary devices are used to underscore the fact that whatever dreams the Black Americans had were totally dead, So that's why you see the cage birds standing on the grave of dreams, because the dreams were totally killed by their oppressors who denied them the right to pursue their dreams. So you can find the tone of this stanza of the poem. The tone has shifted from that of celebration of freedom to that of helplessness and hopelessness, This is achieved through the poet's diction or choice of words, and we find a number of such words or groups of words in this stanza. We are going to look at them critically, because you analyze a poem through the poet's choice of words. A poet's choice of words gives us a clue to the tone, all right? The tone. And the tone, of course, gives us insight into the mood of the poet, the poet's state of mind at the time of putting pen to paper. And all these devices put together help us to decode the themes, the major ideas expressed by the writer. So we can see these various words used here, such as a caged bird. The bird is caged, all right? Then grave of dreams. Grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare screen, his wings are clipped, his feet are tied. All right, so you can see exactly, these words are used, and they are used here to actually draw our attention to the situation of the average Black American of that period. When your wings are clipped, look at a bird whose wings are clipped cannot fly. And when your feet are tied, you can't walk away from your deplorable situation, that's your ugly situation. You can't walk from point A to point B. So you can only scream, you cry at night, but you are totally unable to do something about the ugly situation. You can only lament and cry and weep, but you can do nothing. So you can't achieve your dreams because your hands are tied, your feet are tied, your wings are clipped. All right? So those are the words that give us a clue to the deprivation, all right? And the kind of disability, the Black Americans were subjected to, that made it impossible for them to achieve their dreams. Look at wings are clipped. How can a bird fly from the undesirable points, or the point of boredom, where the bird is bored, to a desired destination? And dreaming is all about, you're moving from point A to point B. You are moving from a point that you don't desire to a point that you desire. That is a dream. But because your feet are tied, you cannot move from the point where you are sad, where you have failed, you are a failure, you are deprived, all right? You are poor, you are traumatized. You can't step out of that situation because your feet are tied. You are deprived of movement. So you have the desire to look for green pastures somewhere, but you lack the wherewithal to move from point A to point B. So your dreams cannot be achieved. You can only stand on the grave of your dreams, but you can't achieve them. That's the situation that the poet Maya Angelou is depicting in this poem, precisely in stanza 5, talking about shattered dreams, all right? When your dreams are shattered, of course, you are only sad, all right? It's a sad situation indeed. So we have looked at the various themes that we itemized, 7 of them. There are other themes, but these 7 specifically are quite dominant. And so it's time to sum up. On the whole, we can see that the poem uses 2 birds, the free bird and the caged bird, as metaphors to depict the racial discrimination inherent in the American society of the slavery era and its aftermath. The free bird represents the privileged white American community, while or whereas the caged bird represents the enslaved, deprived, and oppressed Black American community. Now we see the use of symbolism here. Symbolism is an evident poetic device in this poem because we find expressions such as the free bird, the sky, the breeze, the trees, fat worms, the dumb bright lawn, etc., etc., as symbols which stand for the white American communities and the vast opportunities and privileges available to them. On the contrary, we find that the cage expressions like the caged bird, the narrow cage, the bars of rage, wings clipped, feet tied, things unknown but longed for, grave of dreams, shadow shouts, nightmare screams, etc., etc., are also symbols used to represent the Black American communities and their restrictions, confinement, injustice, unfairness, frustrations, helplessness, and hopelessness. All right, so this is the way we sum up this analysis. I want to believe that you have gotten a clear picture of what the themes are in Caged Bird. With this analysis, you won't have any problem just closing your eyes and forming a mental picture of the caged bird. Then you will be able to appreciate the dominant themes expressed in this wonderful and amazing poem written by Maya Angelou. I want to believe that I've been able to help you appreciate this poem, because in literary appreciation, of course, you have to be emotionally involved. You have to actually put yourself in the very shoes of the poet and try to find yourself in the poet's state of mind. And then you'll be able to appreciate the powerful feelings, the powerful emotions, because according to a notable English scholar, William Wordsworth, poetry is a powerful, it is an outpouring of powerful feelings collected in tranquility. And that is what poetry is about. So in analyzing the themes, we have been able to put ourselves in Maya Angelou's state of mind to share in her powerful feelings that she poured out in this poem. I hope you enjoyed this analysis, and if you did, please share this video and like it and share it with your friends and relations. I must emphasize that if you have anyone who is going to sit for an English exam where they will be analyzing Maya Angelou's cage bird, you ought to do the person a favor. Whether he or she is your friend or your relation, please make sure you share this video with them. It will be very helpful to them in scoring high in their exams. And if you are a lover of literature and you enjoyed this, this analysis, then of course you can share it with your friends who also love literary appreciation. I want to say a big thank you to all of you for being part of today's episode. I really appreciate the fact that you have been part of the episode, and I appreciate all of you out there who have been part of this, the success story of this channel. In a previous, in a previous video, I discussed how to apply for approval, for monetization on YouTube, and how I applied and got approval in 26 hours, within 26 hours. Now, that achievement wouldn't have been possible without your massive support. So I want to say a big thank you to all of you who have given your massive support to this channel. You have really shown that you love this channel, because within a short time, we were able to qualify adequately for YouTube, for monetization on YouTube. And we were able to, apply for and get our approval. So it is because you cared. It is because you showed massive support for this channel. So it's my turn to say a big thank you to all of you. And if you are new to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Click on the bell icon as well, so that whenever a new video is uploaded on the channel, you will be instantly notified. So thank you very much for being part of today's episode. If you have any questions or any comments or any commendations, please leave them in the comment section below. Don't forget to explore the description section. You will find a previous video I uploaded that analyzes comprehensively Caged Bird by Maya Angelou. Stanza by stanza, you will enjoy that video as well. There are other videos analyzing both African and non-African poems, drama, plays, and prose, You will find all of them. And you will also find other videos that, will help you to gain proficiency in the use of English. So many thanks for watching today's video. A big thank you to all of you out there for being part of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, kindly subscribe to this channel. Subscribe now as a way of giving us support. For notification about new videos, click on the bell icon. You will find the bell icon. Click on it so that whenever a new video is uploaded, you will be instantly notified. If you have actually enjoyed the video, like and share the video with your friends and relatives. This is very important. If you have any comments, leave your comments below. Any questions, any suggestions, we would gladly receive them and respond promptly and positively to them. See you in the next video. I look forward to always seeing you in the new video. Thank you.